West Encyclopedia of American Law defines euthanasia as the act of killing an incurably ill person out of concern and compassion for that person's suffering. On March 18, 2015, Gallup polls conducted a study and found that an immense 86% of people supported euthanasia. But even that much support still doesn't make it legal in most of the United States. The only states that have it legalized are Washington, Vermont, Oregon, and Montana. Because it is so controversial, there is a lot of differing opinions, which I'm sure you have as well. But if this ever had to happen in your family, I think you would want to be a little more educated before making a decision. I researched and found many arguments that I will be sharing with you. Since it has sparked so many debates, I will tell you a lot of information why it should be illegal, why it should be illegal, and about a doctor who he perceived did the right thing. The first argument I will tell you is why it should be legal. Many defenses, such as religious viewpoints, it hurts the medical field, and we need to see the worth in ourselves. Assemblies of God is the largest denomination in the United States. The chairman, Edgar R. Lee, states that we simply feel it is not our prerogative to end life. We were created by God, so he should have the power to decide when our time is up. He also says it is wrong to go against his plan because God is the giver of life, not us. A professor of Buddhist ethics says that Buddhism teaches it is morally wrong to take a human life, including one's own, even if the intention is to end suffering. A staff ethicist at the National Catholic Bioethics Center also oppose it, along with a professor of Christian ethics at the Virginia Theological Seminary. They state that the church's view is to never take a life, not even your own, even if legalizing euthanasia disrespects anyone who practices these religions, and having this as an option also hurts the medical field. Donald Boudreaux, MD, wrote an article explaining how he could not fathom if this ever became legal, because he couldn't imagine this ever being taught in medical schools, how to kill your patients. It can also lead to other problems, such as a simple way out, rather than letting the doctors do what they trained years to do, which is to save your life. It gives doctors and nurses way too much power and control when it should be the patient's ultimate decision. Also, probably the most important reason is we need to have more respect for our bodies and ourselves. We should not abuse the life we were given. The next side is why it should be legal. We have the right to decide what happens to our bodies. It is not technically considered murder, and the Hippocratic Oath seems to support it. We all have rights, and we were born with choices and freedom, which is what being American means. Regardless of any situation, we've always been able to stand up for what we want and what we believe in. It is not technically considered murder either. Murder is killing for the sole purpose of pain and suffering, and the victim generally does not want to die. However, in this circumstance, the patient chooses to and wants to die just to end their suffering. The Hippocratic Oath also seems to support it by stating do no harm. By keeping a patient alive in agony and in suffering is technically doing more harm than good, rather than just putting them out of their misery. I don't think we can talk about euthanasia without bringing up the infamous name that goes along with it, Dr. Jack Kevorkian, nicknamed Dr. Death. He assisted at least 130 people in committing suicide using his suicide machine, where he bought scrap pieces of metal for $30 to build it. It started with a drip of solution, then the patient would press a button to stop the solution and start releasing a drug of thiopental with a 60-second timer. This would put the patient into a deep coma. Finally, the timer's click would go into a lethal dose of potassium chloride. That would stop the heart, and the patient would die of a heart attack while sleeping. For his actions, he was charged many times within 7 years. His charges were almost always dismissed until 10 years later, he was convicted of second-degree murder on April 13, 1999. He was sentenced 10 to 25 years, but only served 8 of those years after promising never to conduct a physician-assisted suicide. He died 5 years after he was released. Now that we have covered both sides of this heavily debated topic, hopefully you have learned more than you did before and can pick a side with more confidence. First, we discussed why it should be illegal because of different religious viewpoints. It hurts the medical field, and we need to care about our bodies more than to just end it. Then we covered why people support euthanasia. It is believed that we all have rights and freedom to decide for ourselves. It is not defined as murder, and the Hippocratic Oath seems to support it. It is more ethical to do for the patient. Lastly, we learned about Dr. Jack Kevorkian, a doctor who felt very strongly about what he did and stood by his actions. He generated lots of talk about euthanasia and made massive headlines. It is up to you to decide where you stand in this controversial topic. But keep in mind, what if it was you or someone you knew or someone you loved in this situation, who was in an unbearable state of pain? Would you want them to have a choice, and would that change your opinion?